joins the show once again. Jake, what's going on, my man? How are you?
Man, doing great. Excited for another big weekend slate of college football. I do want to say thank you, obviously, to all the veterans out there, anybody who served, anybody that's serving. Again, we wouldn't be able to talk about sports and do the things that we want to do as Americans without you guys. So I want to make sure and give a shout out. And also, it's the Marines' birthday today, 248th. The some of the best of the best. My grandfather was one of them, but no, just want to give a shout out to everybody who serves this country. You guys, the real MVP.
Well said, Jake. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and dive into everything. Let's first start off. This morning I saw both Cone and Blaine's reactions to
Mm-hmm.
the Ole Miss audio that leaked. And I felt like, a couple of weeks ago, this was a story, but it really didn't gain a whole lot of traction or get legs, right? But with audio being released, right, you knew there would be some conversation, some chatter. Again, I heard Cone and Blaine this morning. Where do you stand on this whole Lane Kiffin situation with the player suing for $40 million? Was he right? Was he wrong? Where do you fall with all this?
Well, first off, look, mental health is something that needs to be taken serious. We dealt with it in my family with my father and that situation. Have been up close and personal with it. We all go through our battles. But in this case, I live in the real world, Chris, and I don't care if you host a sports show, if you're a salesman, if you're an accountant. We all have bosses. Most of our bosses have bosses, and regardless of what's going on, if you're in a job or you're in something where you're getting paid or reimbursed or something for your services, even in college football with a scholarship, and somebody above you says, "Hey, I need to meet with you," you can't just tell them to shove it, right? You can't just say, "All right, hey, I need to take a couple weeks off for a mental health break," and then the person above you says, "Well, I need to meet with you and talk about it," and you tell them no. You shouldn't be surprised, regardless of what area of life you're in, when you go back to work after not going there for 2 weeks or go back to wherever, and you no longer have that position. Now, coincidentally, this mental health episode just so happened to take place after he was told that he was moving from defense to offensive line and possibly to the scout team. And he asked Lane Kiffin, "Is that a choice that I have, or is that something you're telling me I have to do?" And Lane Kiffin said, if you don't want to do it, then you can quit or transfer. We live in one of the most free eras there's ever been in college athletics for not only getting paid for your name, image, and likeness, but being able to go where you want with no consequence. I get a little tired, Chris, when we refer to 18 to 22-year-olds as children, when we treat them like they're 8 to 12-year-olds. It wasn't that long ago, and speaking about Veterans Day and the Marines' birthday being today, that we dropped 18-year-olds off to go fight the Nazis and die in a European country, yet you can't be expected to meet with your superior. If you're going to take 2 weeks off, that's too much to ask. I also think it's very telling that not only was this audio clip not contextual, it only gets to the part where Lane Kiffin is kind of dogging him a little bit about it, which if you've ever been a part of a team or you've ever been in a locker room or dealt with the head coach, you got it easy, bro. Like, you got it easy if you've ever heard the real things that get said. But the fact that we're sitting here in an era where you can get paid for name, image, and likeness, you can be on full scholarship, yet you have the ability to just do whatever you want whenever you want. That's a horrible precedent to set if you're Lane Kiffin. It's impossible to operate under that. And number two, it's not realistic. And the job of these coaches is to mold these young adults, not children, these young adults, and get them ready for the real world. And sometimes tough love's needed. Could Lane Kiffin have kept his composure a little bit better? I guess so. Could he have not called him a few of the choice words he called him? I guess so. But sometimes it makes you better. And the best thing he could do for that kid was to be honest with him. What I find unbelievably ironic is you have one coach tell a bunch of kids who have gone in there and worked hard and haven't done anything wrong or asked for a break, "Hey, I'm bringing new luggage with me. You might as well transfer. I'm bringing my Louis with me." And that's cool. That's hip. That's with it. But Lane Kiffin tells a guy who took a 2-week vacation because he didn't like the way it was going and didn't show up, "Hey, you're off the team." And now all of a sudden Lane Kiffin is Harvey Dent. I think it shows the signs of times we live in. I think weak times make soft men. And I think half the problem we have with young people is they expect all the success with none of the work. and part of a team sport. And one of the greatest things that football offers us and why it's a great teacher of life is because it's about the grind. It's about everybody going through the times that are tough together to get to the good times. Because at the end of the day, if the hard times weren't so hard, the sweet times wouldn't be so sweet. So I think it's soft, to be honest with you. 40 million, 40 million. I wouldn't give you 40 cents with that work ethic.
And Jake, I love what you said. You know, good times make soft men make hard times make, and the rest is history, right? So, I mean, it's I think very well said, and I agree with you. We're going to talk about this more on the show today, but to your point, anybody who's ever been in a locker room before, especially if you've been part of a team, I mean, Ole Miss is good. I've been on a team in college that was not good, that was losing, and you'd be blown away if you heard some of the things that were said.
Well, you know the best part about coaching in college, Chris, compared to high school, and why I have so much respect for high school coaches, is I coached high school for 1 year. For 1 year. The rest was in college. I never had to worry about, once I got them on campus, mama calling me, daddy calling me, hey, little Johnny's not happy. Hey, little Timmy's not happy. He's not enjoying it. Okay. Well, in college, if he's not happy, he's on scholarship, here's what you can do. You can get in the car. You can drive up here. We can have all his stuff outside the facility. Y'all can get in the car and go on together, right? In high school, it's a little bit tougher than that, but I mean, it's just shows the sign of the times we live in. 40 million? You want 40 million? Dude, that mental health's a real thing, dog. It's a real thing. Like, we are going through problems. That doesn't mean you get a 2-week free vacation, then expect everything to just be rainbows and handshakes and smiles when you get back. It's not how life works. He did that kid a favor.
Yeah, I think the shame of it too, Jake, is that asking for 40 million for a situation like this is making a mockery of the people that actually have real issues and problems and serious, and $40 million for what? For what? So I agree with you. To other pressing matters, Jake Crain, the Big Ten preparing a notice of disciplinary action against Michigan ahead of their trip to Penn State, per Heather Dinich. From what I've read on social media, two people are saying Jim Harbaugh is gonna be on that plane to Penn State.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Like, what's the Big Ten gonna do here? 3-game suspension, they're rumoring. What do you expect from the Big Ten?
This is, I just feel like this is such a joke. This is just absolutely ridiculous. But we talked about that the last time I was on here. It'll be a slap on the wrist or something. I mean, heck, at this point, Jim Harbaugh hadn't even coached half the season. So you might as well sit out another 2 games. If anybody's prepared to do it, it's Michigan. Who knows how he'll spin this? But the fact this has gotten to this point, and look, I get it. Tony Petitti, he's a younger one of the commissioners. When he sits down with the rest of the Dons, you know, like what Greg Sankey would have said if this was Alabama? He'd have been in that room, like, petting his cat, like, with a cigar. He's like, we're not going to do nothing. We're not going to do nothing to him. And the more this goes on, the more respect I have for Michigan. You want to know why? Because growing up in SEC country, and y'all can feel me on this, South Carolina fans, y'all been in the SEC long enough. Y'all get it. All we do is get pointed at. All you guys care about is football. Y'all are willing to do anything. There's things that are more important. Hell, the slogan of the conference is "It just means more." And come to find out, those sitting on their golden hills and their ivory towers, Chris, telling everybody else, oh, you can win and be a successful program while doing it the right way and being so inclusive and all these other things. Y'all are just as dirty as the rest of us. Y'all are just as degenerate as the rest of us. This is the same argument we had before NIL, when people be like, well, at least my school's not paying players. Yeah, they are, bud. Then there used to be an unwritten rule. That's why nobody turned anybody in, because if a kid comes and visits me and I pay him $100,000 when it's illegal to pay him, or I pay him $50,000, and then he goes and visits your school and you pay him $150,000 and he commits to your school, what am I going to do? Turn him in? Go tell the NCAA, well, they paid him $50,000. No, it's the mob, man. It's the mob. And again, you're getting signals either way, whether a coach comes over, whether you send in a guy before the game, whether you pick him up like Auburn did against Mississippi State halfway through the first quarter. So if the end result is you get the signs, and we all know for years people have been stealing each other's signs, and it's how you adjust after it. If it all ends with the same outcome, then what's the difference? What's the big deal? It's so sad We're talking about this in the middle of what has been one of the best college football seasons so far, with as many teams as I can possibly remember that can win it, on the verge of going to a 12-team playoff. We should be having incredible conversations about what it's going to come down to in the Final Four and some of these great matchups. But no, what are we doing? We're having the NCAA just whisper to guys at Yahoo Sports and around the country, hey, we don't have any evidence, but tell them this, tell them this. Then all of a sudden, Tony Petitti, the new commissioner of the Big Ten, gets all nervous because he doesn't want to look like he's, the getting strung along by the puppets. It'll be a slap on the wrist. This is an absolute joke, and it's laughable. We're still talking about this on the eve of Michigan versus Penn State. I'm having to talk about stealing signs and suspensions. This isn't the Astros, dog. We're not beating on trash cans with electronic devices telling us that, hey, they're throwing it to this guy. It's not how that works.
Jake, too, the irony that you mentioned of any college fan base being this holier than thou approach.
Oh, it's laughable.
Turn it. Yeah. I mean, and it happens everywhere, right? I mean, but I had in-depth conversations with the late, great Brad Lawing, who coached at South Carolina, coached at Florida, coached at Michigan State under Nick Saban. Like, this dude's been around the block, coached some big-time football. But he was just telling me stories. I mean, back in the 90s when, one of his stints was at South Carolina, I think from like 92 to 98 or something. He was telling me the stories, the recruiting stories. Heck, he told me a story about when they were recruiting, I think maybe it was Travian Robertson or maybe it was Pharaoh Cooper or somebody. Either way, a recruiting battle he had head-to-head with Billy Napier when he was at Clemson. And that, they would catch or it was Kelsey Quarles, the D lineman. Either way, doesn't matter the player. But they would, he caught Billy Napier and caught another coach like visiting with a player when he wasn't supposed to. And there was just kind of like this unwritten rule of like, all right, like we're both doing what we need to do, but you don't piss in my yard. I won't piss in your yard.
It's all fair, right? It's all fair. It's
Right.
all fair but may the best man win. But this is again in the arms race. There's so much money that's involved in college football, and the pressure to win is so high. Just like anything, you are going to find every crease, every avenue, every available option to put your team ahead. What's the best way to do that? Get the best players. Now, there are rules that can't be broken, right? There are some rules that shouldn't be broken, but this ain't one of them.
And I like the point you made too, Jake, whether it was last week or on your show, where it's like, be careful throwing stones from a glass house at Michigan and
you
piling
heard what
on.
Cone said, right? What Michigan did with the meeting with the Big Ten. So apparently Michigan has this like break if emergency binder of things other teams have done, including stealing their signals, like Purdue, Illinois, all the way down the list. They brought that to the meeting. They're like, okay, we're not saying this didn't happen, but look at what else is happening. They went Donnie Brasco on them.
Who can tattletale more? That's kind of what it turns into.
How snitches, man.
Hey, love it. Everybody's playing the role of what's the rapper's name? 6ix9ine, right? Just whatever. Keep me out of jail.
Yeah, God, that sucked.
You mentioned the rankings and how many teams can win it, Jake. Obviously, college football playoff rankings. They don't mean a ton right now, but your thoughts: top 6: Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Washington and Oregon at 5, 6. Then you got, I think it's Texas and Bama at 7, 8. I thought Greg McElroy made some really good points about resume and who Oregon's played versus who Texas has played, who Bama's played. But your overall thoughts on the college football playoff rankings? I mean, is it something you start paying attention to right now, or are you going to give that a couple weeks?
Well, it typically works itself out. Even in a crazy year like this year, it'll probably work itself out. But I'm almost done paying attention to it. Like, I have to talk about it because obviously it's a big deal. And it's a big part of our show. And we have a huge college football fan base and audience, but I'm so sick of the committee like trying to tell me like they're doing anything other than just trying to appease as many people as possible. Like I get it doesn't all just need to be one thing, right? You want it to be a multitude of things, but it still has to make sense. Like, you can't sit here and tell me Ohio State is number 1 in the country because of what they've done this year, because of their resume. The reason they're in front of Georgia and Michigan is because of their resume and what they've done this year. And then Florida State's number 4. I don't understand that. You can't tell me that. You can't tell me that head-to-head also is a huge deal and it matters when teams with even records who both lost once in the last 3 weeks, one to the other one, how Texas was in front of Oklahoma when they both had one loss. That makes absolutely no sense. You can't tell me that being undefeated matters more than anything and then put Tulane, who's 7-1, over James Madison, who's 8-0. So it's all contradictory. They try to appease as many people as possible. I'm sick of athletic directors being on this. We need to have people who understand what's going on, who actually watch all the games, not guys that were just lawyers in college and now they're athletic directors. And so since they're the athletic director, they know what needs to happen. It needs to be pretty simple. There's one overarching criteria, right? Whether that's strength of schedule, whether that's you want to put it in some whole resume ranking that a computer shoots out that adds all those things, which you already have, that's great. It needs to be that and a blend of the eye test. But what it can't be is contradictory all the way throughout. There may be one or two instances, like having Oregon in front of Texas and Alabama. That's probably the biggest knock that I have on our rankings we did collectively between us three. That's where we had our most heated argument. But you could say that Oregon does return a lot from what they had last year. The same reason that we have Michigan where we have them is because while Michigan hadn't played the toughest schedule this year, I've watched this group of core players play for the last 2 years. They've made the playoff the last 2 years. This offensive line that added 2 All-Americans to it that I've seen play at the Division I level, a quarterback in J.J. McCarthy and running backs that are returning, a defense that I know most of the guys that are returning and what they can do because I've seen it and they've lost multiple ways. So there's no point in even having the rankings right now if there's not going to be any uniformity to it or consistency. I just think it's a bunch of old rich people sitting in a room seeing how many asses they can kiss and how little people they can piss off.
Take that statement and apply it to a lot of different things throughout the world, Jake. I'll leave it at
It's amazing, right? How it always ends up like this.
Yeah, that's what it all kind of funnels down into. That's it. Jake, on the field, let's talk a little football. South Carolina, a win is a win is a win. They beat Jacksonville State, a team that had lost 4 in a row. Granted, I left that game very dejected. Felt like I just watched a loss.
I know.
But either
I was
way,
texting with you during the game.
right. I mean, a win is a win is a win. I guess you just take them where you can get them when you're 3-6. Auburn just played Vanderbilt, and Auburn's not an explosive offense. That's not a hot take, and seemed like they went up and down the field on them. And by the way, I totally owned the I picked Vanderbilt in the
Oh, you did.
summer.
You did pick Vanderbilt over the summer, Chris.
And then we got to the week of the game, and I was like, you know what? It's already out there. It's already done. And Auburn Twitter was in my mentions on Saturday yet again, which I appreciated.
I bet they were.
That was a lot of fun. They were going back to the graphic over the summer, like, hey, buddy.
Oh, dude,
what about this one?
Nobody keeps a grudge like Auburn, dude. Nobody. Like, they'll remember 100 years from now. Like, literally at your funeral, there'll be somebody just gets up.
Remember that guy?
Like, I remember the time Chris picked Vanderbilt.
Yeah. So what did you see from Vandy? I mean, obviously South Carolina is a team that has their own slew of issues, but Gamecocks going for their 15th straight win over Vandy in this series. What did you see from Vanderbilt that you look at the game tomorrow? Does it favor South Carolina? Gamecocks yet again 2 touchdown favorites?
Yeah, same thing I saw when they played Hawaii. They're bad at football. Outside of Will Shepherd, Vanderbilt's bad at football. I don't care what anybody says, however they try to convince you. This offensive line is awful. And then you look, I mean, it's gotten to the point now where I don't care how good you are on defense. Eventually, when you realize the offense is awful, it just takes a little bit out of you every day. And it's look, Vanderbilt's trying to get to graduation. Those guys trying to get that degree at this point. I mean, let's be honest. No, they're just not a good football team, and it's unfortunate because I do like Clark Lee. And there was a lot of talk in the offseason about Vanderbilt, being more of a consistent power. Or not power, but being a more consistent player in the SEC that contends a little bit more or has a chance to win a couple more games. But this is as bad as a team as I can remember. They struggle to throw the ball. They'll make South Carolina's defense look a lot better this weekend. They'll look a lot better this weekend. You'll be leaving the stadium feeling pretty good about it. Ken Seals is really their best hope at quarterback at this point. The lefty, he's from the state of Alabama. He's an Alabama kid. I mean, he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a helicopter in the ocean. So no, South Carolina, I love it. I love to buy it down -13.5 Gamecocks. I think they're going to roll. I think Jacksonville State was a whole hell of a lot harder matchup than Vanderbilt is. And it just is what it is, man. And at this point, if we're going to bring in Texas and Oklahoma, like, can we put somebody on the trading block? Can we get Vandy? Why do we pretend that academics matters? Why do we keep doing this? Like, we're like, no, don't get rid of Vandy because academics matters. How many people would really be like, nope, not watching SEC anymore now that that Vandy's out and academics says, because that's why I watched. That's definitely why I watched LSU versus Alabama last week because of academics, definitely for sure.
Jake, I think you're going to get a lot of pushback though from the folks in Columbia if you try to trade Vandy out because that's typically the auto win per auto win. That's an auto win. So you might get some
that.
You might get some pushback on that.
I may get pushback from all other 19 teams in the league now.
Indeed. Looking at the Week 11 slate, Jake, let's go right to the big one. Ole Miss in Georgia. This is a
Mhm.
night game at Sanford Stadium. College game day is in town. What are you most looking forward to this one? Can Lane Kiffin and company give the Dogs enough headaches to make this thing a fourth quarter game or maybe even pull the upset?
Well, I do think this Ole Miss team is built a little bit different than some of the Ole Miss teams we've seen in the past that have had success. Typically they're high flying on offense, defense just holding on by the seat of their pants. See if they can outscore you. It'll be fun. Let's go really fast. This Ole Miss team, I think, is more physical and more balanced than they've had in a while. I think Pete Golding's brought a little bit of calm to that defense, a little bit of an edge too into what he brings and his ability to mix it up and understanding who he's going against in the conference. I think they're deeper in the front seven on the defensive line than they've been in a while. But having said that, this Georgia team, the scariest thing about them, and I'll continue to say, is that they're a very old, young team. They're a team that is developing while they're winning. They're very mature. They don't get too high. They don't get too low. I've not seen them panic yet, even in first halves where they've struggled. And that's where Georgia's really struggled in the first half. Then in the second half, that G stands for gravity here as of late, and they just keep pushing on you and pushing on you. And I think Carson Beck, it goes to show you that guys who bide their time, who get a lot of experience within the program, going through practices, and then getting a chance to go out there and shine, it gets you the most ready. That's why red shirts, sometimes the best thing that can happen to you. Looking though schematically, where Georgia has had, quote unquote trouble, been pretty good on defense this year, quote unquote trouble against the run is teams that have quarterbacks that can press the perimeter, right, in the run game. Because they're able to spread you out and then attack you vertically. Ole Miss is very good laterally and vertically in the run game, and it's a huge weapon for them. And Jackson Dart, I think, has done a good job of limiting the turnovers that he's had while the play when the play breaks down or improvisationally, not throwing the intermediate defenders when he scrambles. And Ole Miss is top 5 in the country in not turning the ball over. They're top 10 in sacks defensively, top 5 in not turning the ball over offensively. That's a pretty good combination. I think what you're going to see is Ole Miss is going to hang around. I would not be shocked if it was tight at the end of the first half where Ole Miss is even winning, but Georgia's going to do what Georgia does. They're going to make their adjustments, and in the second half, they're going to win, but I like Ole Miss to cover to 10.5.
Don't you feel like, though, Jake, at some point, like that's playing with fire? Like that's a recipe for disaster for Georgia.
I
Like
mean,
it's
it,
going to
it
bite
is.
them. You got to think it's going to bite them at some point if you play
Well,
that
you
way.
got to think, is Carson Beck going to come down to earth one of these games? Like, is he going to have one of these games where even the best quarterbacks with the most experience, they have them. At some point, is somebody going to force him to do that? But I think the great equalizer, Chris, is Georgia has one of the best offensive lines in the country, especially when it comes to pass protection. I mean, you have a guy that's willing to throw the check down, a guy that's got plenty of security blankets, even without Brock Bowers, a guy that's got a solid run game, that's deep at the tight end position. There's a reason Georgia's number 1 in the country on third down on offense and on defense. It's because he has plenty of time to throw the ball, and they're the most efficient offense in the country. Georgia's had a 3rd and 12 twice this season. Twice, that's it. It's incredible. So a team that stays on schedule, a quarterback that understands you'll never go broke making a profit, that's a hard team to put in a bad situation. You think maybe the math will end up working out on it? We'll see. I just don't trust Ole Miss in the second half.
Now, Jake, a game that's sort of flying under the radar. It's certainly not going to determine the SEC West champion, but the Auburn Tigers going to Fayetteville to take on Arkansas. 4:00 kick on SEC Network. Arkansas, a team all of a sudden got their first SEC win. It's crazy what happens when you fire a deficient coordinator and just kind of let the thing hang out and see what happens. And KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders get loose and you pull off a big win. Auburn obviously coming off the Vandy win. What are your thoughts on this one? Again, this isn't like the headliner matchup, but I think this could be a really, really fun game.
Yeah, I mean, flip a coin. Okay, this is one. Like,
Yeah.
if anybody tells you that they know exactly what's going to happen in this game, call the
By the way,
FBI.
I'm taking Auburn on the road this week. I think I'm paying my debts back to Auburn people. So
Look, I mean, who knows? 50-50, Chris. Look, I think there is something to Kenny Guyton obviously coming in and putting the ball in the best player's hands. I mean, I don't think that's, a crazy formula. I think Dan Enos was trying to take some hits off of KJ and off Rocket to get him through the year and ended up costing him his job. What a horrible loss by Billy Napier in Florida, too, by the way. Just a really bad loss. And I keep telling Arkansas fans, was this the best thing that could have happened to you guys? I mean, does this just delay the inevitable? We'll see down the road. But look, I don't trust Peyton Thorne yet on the road against a team with the pulse in an environment with a pulse. I mean, he went out to Cal and looked flustered. Going to Vanderbilt, I mean, there were more Auburn fans there than there were Vanderbilt fans. So Arkansas, after that win, I'm sure they're going to be fired up. You know, Fayetteville's got a lot of pride. They're going to show up, show out. I just still don't trust Peyton Thorne enough on the road against teams with a pulse. And I think Auburn can get there in the pass rush. I just don't think get KJ Jefferson down. I mean, he's a moving mobile home. I mean, how do you tackle a mobile home that's going down the highway? I mean, you just throw bodies at it. So look, I think Arkansas wins this game, but betting this, not touching at all.
Jake, forgive me. I'm just humored by it. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm humored by the thought of we don't trust our quarterback in road games yet. It is November the 10th, my friend. So that ship is probably long sailed. There's probably no, there's no trusting him at that point. It is
dear Michael Pratt.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jake.
Speaking of gambling, Tennessee, Mizzou, this one basically coin flip as well. I like the over. What are you looking at in this ballgame?
You know, Luther Burden's health's obviously a big deal. Missouri's pass defense is very deficient, but I'm still and they've protected Joe Milton. Tennessee is 75th in the country in passes attempted per game, and a lot of that's because they got a great run game. You're able to protect them. I mean, if you look, I think Joe Milton's got 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Hasn't been exceptional. I think in the first half against Alabama, he was incredible. And then, they put the invisibility cloak on the second half, just absolutely, disappeared for a while. But I think Missouri just finds a way, man. I think this is a good team. This is a Missouri team that went on the road and beat Kentucky without Luther Burden going off. I like their run game. I like Schrader a lot. I think this offensive line's overperforming. Brady Cook's dual threat ability. He's still sneaky as a runner. And then you have Weiss Jr. and guys that can make plays on the outside. Tennessee's been a little bit Jekyll and Hyde on the road and not just halves-wise. I mean, you remember going down to Florida and the way they looked. I think Joe Milton makes a couple big mistakes this game. I like Missouri. I think they're still the underdog. I think they're minus 102 or something last time I saw it, as opposed to Tennessee being minus 115. I think they're plus 1.5, something like that. But no, I like Missouri money line.
Jake, is LSU Florida a rivalry in your mind?
No.
They consider it one, I think. I think
LSU considers everybody a rivalry because they don't have an in-state rival. That's what happens. Like that's you got to consider everybody a rivalry, right? Like I'm from Auburn. It's Alabama. Y'all from South Carolina fans. It's Clemson, right? You're in the same state. LSU, it's Tulane, Louisiana Tech.
Nichols?
No, LSU's got a rivalry with everybody because they have a rivalry with no one.
That's fair enough. Do you give the Gators any shot in Baton Rouge?
I mean, yeah, because LSU's defense is god-awful. Which Florida team's going to show up? I mean, Billy, speaking about Jekyll and Hyde, and look, I know
they've been so up and down, to your point.
It's weird,
roller
man.
coaster.
It's like the
roller
Hall
coaster.
Pass, like,
they hate prosperity. They hate prosperity.
Can't stand it. I just think LSU, Jaden Daniels is going to play. It's looking like that they got the best offense in the country. How much of a shame was it that Jaden Daniels went out in that Bama game? Because we were robbed of such a great finish. That was going to be such a great finish to that game. Those two quarterbacks, that was incredible football.
I know I'm asking you about every game, basically, Jake, but really quickly, Bama, Kentucky, do you feel like that's a weird spread in that game? What's it at, 10 right now? Which that feels
like 10
low.
or 11.
That feels kind of low, does it not?
Well, I think Kentucky.
I feel like people, not to cut you off, but I feel like people kind of sold their stock on Kentucky a couple weeks ago.
When everybody's looking at Kentucky, Georgia, they're like, Kentucky's going to win. Kentucky, that was the worst matchup for Kentucky possible. Yeah. Kentucky's a box run team. They're a power, counter, gap scheme run team. They'll do some zone stuff, but Devin Leary's not going to keep the ball and run it. Like, they're a traditional run team that builds it off play action. I think they play action like 33% of the time, which maybe tops in the league. That's what Liam Cohen does, and he pre-snap motions you to find out what coverage you're in and how much movement you're getting. That's what he does. Kentucky is not built to run into the teeth of Georgia. Kentucky is not built to run into the teeth of Alabama. Devin Leary's played a couple good games here lately. Don't trust him. Don't trust him without a run game. Alabama's defense is really good. I think Alabama, and I don't think and now Saban comes out and says, well, I guess we're going to tailor the game plan to Jalen Milroe's strengths now. Well, then everybody's in trouble, including Kentucky. I like Bama big in this one. Big.
And speaking of Kentucky's playing style, Jake, what I'm not looking forward to, looking way too far ahead, is what Ray Davis might do to the South Carolina defense. He might go for 3 bills.
Here's the thing: like, am I going to get brought back on when y'all go 5-7? Like, is just my time?
For sure. End? No, dude. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Come on, you know.
No. I'm just saying. There's a lot of hate earlier in the year. Don't think I forgot.
Listen, I respect the man that keeps the receipts. I respect it. The rest of the slate, obviously, headline Jake, Michigan and Penn State, the big noon kickoff. What else are you excited about on this Saturday? Florida State, Miami, still a really fun rivalry.
Oh yeah.
Utah, Washington. Um, what else are you looking forward to? Oregon State, Stanford, if you just want to have some fun. I don't know.
Look, yeah, I think Washington, Utah. While I don't think Utah's going to be able to score enough points, it's going to be fun anytime Penix gets out there. I can't wait to watch Oregon score 80 on USC. That's going to be incredible to watch. I'll tell you, I want to see.
10:30, the 10:30 kick.
Yeah, that's going to be a murder. Oh
Mhm.
God, it was Dan Lanning and Bo Nix in the library with a rope. Also, Quinn Ewers. I want to see how healthy he looks. Kind of what Steve puts on him on the road in TCU. That should be an interesting game. There's great games throughout the whole slate, man. It's just all over the country, from the West Coast to the ACC. Duke, North Carolina. Don't think Riley Leonard's going to play. Obviously, North Carolina's kind of fallen off a cliff. Louisville dodged a bullet last night. Woo! Keanu Reeves, that bullet last night against Virginia. Virginia's been like sneaky. They jumped up and bit North Carolina. They've been in some games I don't think they're going to be in. Maybe this Tony Elliott situation is going to work out after all.
It was Virginia that lost to JMU in week 2, right? Wasn't that
James
that game?
Madison's a wagon.
Yes, yeah. And so I think after that, I'm like, oh, they lost to James Madison. They're just god awful. And it's like, actually, JMU
Madison and Liberty are just covering machines.
It's like, actually. And don't kid us, Jake. I know you're most looking forward to South Carolina Vandy at noon. That's going to be just a thriller.
Murder they wrote. Worse than Jacksonville State.
I've got a 17-point win. And to be fair, like, I only had a 10-point win or 11-point win against Jacksonville State.
South Carolina
I think JSU would wax Vanderbilt. Truly.
They would. Here's the thing. Who's going to make the mistake and hire Rich Rod? Who's going to do it? Somebody's going to do it.
You know it's going to happen.
Hey, by the way, I got to tell you, did you see on social the parlay my wife hit?
I saw the amount. I didn't see the actual games.
Bro.
What was it for, like 5K?
56. We bet $13 to win $5,600 on an NFL anytime touchdown score. She picked seven players that had to score a touchdown the same day. Bro, I watched it from start to finish. She picked 2 in the same game twice. Right, we're going in the Eagles game, last game of the night. She hit Nico Collins, Jonathan Taylor, Kareem Hunt, Amari Cooper caught a tip pass. Man, somebody else scored. And she had Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. And I'm looking at the whole time, like after 5 to 7. I'm like, these aren't going to hit. This is a great story. It's going to be funny on the show. Jalen Hurts, cute quarterback, sneaks in the first half, first drive of the second half. Here we go. Devontae Smith's on the outside. I saw him look at him and knew it was single coverage. Dog, he threw that ball in the end zone. My animals thought there was like a terrorist attack going on in the house. Like they went nuts. Can't believe it. Then you want to know how it works? I asked her, I was like, all right, honey, you're hot. Who are you taking anytime touchdown scorer for the Bills Bengals? And she looks at me and goes, give me CeeDee Lamb. That's how it is. Know nothing and you win it. That's how you hit it.
Speaking of gambling, Jake, and that's that story, it's funny. That's what will inspire someone to be like, gambling's the greatest. It's like golf when you hit one good shot. It's like, this game's so easy. It's like, no, it's really not.
Yeah.
Your best plays of the weekend, what do you got? I know you got a full card. Also, by the way, college basketball season has begun. I know it, football is king. That's what we're all going to focus on and talk about. But I mean, do you start diving into college basketball betting right now, or do you stick with the
I'm
football
already 6 feet underwater right now,
Okay.
just swimming down to the bottom just to see what's swimming around.
Take all your winnings from football and just blow it all on basketball.
Dude, I enjoy betting college basketball. Yeah. The only thing is I don't know what a foul is. I don't think anybody knows what a foul is really in college basketball, regardless of what they lie to you or whatever Jay Billis wants to say. No, some plays that I love this weekend. Michigan, Penn State under. Yes. Got it at 46. It's at 45 right now. Can't wait to watch Penn State get close in a low-scoring game and lose. Man, it's going to be great seeing that movie for the 35th time. Rutgers, Iowa, under 28.5. Put it down to 18.5. Dare me to do it. I'll take the under there as well. I like Georgia State. -2.5 at home against App. App doesn't travel well. Georgia State's got a quarterback that's pretty witchy, can run the ball really well. Like I said, Oregon TTP. Over 46.5 at like -120. Are you serious? Please. I mean, it's like John Dillinger robbing a bank back then with no security. It's unbelievably easy. Just give me the money. I'm getting out of here. I think that's one to look at. And then, man, God, I really like BYU money line against Iowa State. It's like +260 at home. They're +8. telling you, it's tough to go win at a school that's based off of religion, man. Like, it's tough. I'm just telling you.
I love it. Those all sound like winners, Jake. Those all sound like
Because they
throw in
are,
the
Chris.
throw in the minus 13.5 in Columbia, and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
you're
But I already
yeah.
said that one. Y'all know
No,
that.
yeah, you
13,
got
don't
that one.
take it at 14. Don't be that person. It's a horrible number.
There you have it. Jake Crain of Crain Company. Jake, you guys do a great job, man. I appreciate you taking the time. Keep up the good work, and we'll do it again next weekend, man. Next week. Looking forward to a fun weekend of college ball. Who do you guys have on the show tomorrow?
We got Mike Golick Jr. We're actually releasing it this afternoon. He's our
Okay.
special guest picker. Talk to him a little about Marcus Freeman maybe being on the hot seat next year. Some Notre
Wow.
Dame fans that are kind of over how good looking he is and just want him to win big games. That's why they didn't like Brian Kelly, even though he won a ton of games. But no, I mean, yeah, just check us out. YouTube's the easiest way. It's Crain Company, Crain and Company. You can come watch John Edward Kruger just be a downer every day in the chat. That's always great. Nobody wakes up more pissed off than that guy.
Nobody. Jake, last thing, by the way, side note, because you bring up Notre Dame, how different. It's funny, like on a week in, week out basis, I feel like the what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. The way I view the Palmetto Bowl, South Carolina Clemson, it changes because again, which version of which teams are you going to get? The games in
Well,
Columbia, but I mean, that was a huge win for Clemson.
I feel like I know more about the South Carolina team I'm gonna get than the Clemson team. I mean, I made more money betting on Clemson when everybody just wrote them off for dead. Like everybody picked Syracuse to beat them after they lost to Florida State. Everybody picked Notre Dame to beat them when Clemson lost, and then Clemson beat them home. It's just, and that's what happens. I think when you have a young quarterback, but there's a lot of stuff going on at Clemson. It's weird, man. They're like the guy from Split, like. 1 minute, they're like a 9-year-old. The other minute, they're like a 60-year-old British woman who went through World War II. It's just weird.
And if they finish the season undefeated, I think Tyler from Spartanburg has got to be the MVP.
Like, why is he not in the staff? I mean, let the man call a couple plays. Worked better than Garrett.
Yeah, I mean, hey, no debate there.
Dude, Dabo just comes off, man. I don't know.
Off.
Some just doesn't sit right. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's just like the guy, sometimes I feel like you see kind of maybe who Dabo really is. Like, he doesn't want you to see. Like, I don't know, man. It's just something like from thousands of years of the human beings evolving this planet, whatever happened. Some just rubs me the wrong way. But maybe it's the way he runs down that hill. I don't know.
Full sprint.
Chris, if he ever ate it, he'd have to retire. There's no way. Not in the social media age, you'd never survive.
Yeah.
Every recruiting visit, if I'm Shane Beamer, I'd go on. It was with Clemson. I would just have a poster of Dabo, like, or like a video of him falling down the hill. Be like, look, you believe in this anymore?
And to that point, Jake, it's for Shane Beamer and Dabo Swinney. Like, I would put the state of South Carolina and the two coaches that run the major schools up against any coaches for just like, there are not more daily storylines off of things they say than the Palmetto State.
Y'all have all the daily headlines for coaches and all the politicians. Like, every time I watch a debate, everybody's from South Carolina.
I don't know, man. Something's in the water. Something's in the water. Jake Crain of Crain Company. Jake, I appreciate you, man. We'll do it again next week.
See ya.